Devils Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 179, titled Devils Training Camp Starts. I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with Billy Dean of Hockey on Tap, filling in for Pucks and Pitchforks blog editor-in-chief Nick Villano, as we're streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network. Coming to you live from the Primetime Radio Studios in beautiful New Jersey. And you're probably wondering why I have a Rangers fan
I was going to wait for that.
on this podcast. We couldn't find anybody. We literally couldn't find anybody. We went to the bottom of the barrel, and we got Billy Dean.
You actually went to the Penguins fan first, and Steve. You even went to the Tampa fan and Schwim. They were like, Sam, screw off. And you're like, Billy, I need some help. And I was like, okay, I'll come in, weigh in with my expertise on the Devils and, what I hate and don't like and how I think you guys' season's going to go.
Well, you know what, Bill? I'm going to tell you this. Everybody loves controversy.
Yeah.
It makes for great banter. It's better than not having a podcast, as Nick Villano is preparing for the season, and he is on assignment right now. And the show goes on. We promised you the Let's Go Devils podcast, 5-year anniversary. We're going to do a podcast a day, maybe 2, maybe 3. Devils After Dark is going to be back. Game Day Live is back. Sunday edition is back. Wu Report's back. We're back. And so are the New Jersey Devils, as training camp has started, Bill. And first day of camp is usually where they sign a lot of autographs so they can give away pucks during the year, a lot of promos, a lot of videography.
It's for the fans.
Yeah, Dawson Mercer's wearing number 91, Palat number 18. So that has changed. It's official now. Devil social media putting it out there. Bill Spalding, the Devils' new play-by-play guy for MSG Networks, also tweeting out. He also tweeted out some fun facts of Alexander Holtz that used to put bananas on his pizza. We'll talk about that later. Disgusting.
Yeah,
disgusting. But I love it because let me tell you something about Alexander Holtz, Bill. If he scores 50 goals, I will eat bananas on pizza.
Yeah.
Okay?
Very true.
I will do that. I mean, I'll do anything for 50 goals a season. And that's one of them. And mark my words, you've got the recording. I do what I say. If Alexander Holtz scores 50 goals in a season, in a single season, for your New Jersey Devils, I will eat a pizza with bananas on it.
All right.
And mark my word. Yeah. Yeah.
I will not eat a banana pizza. I will enjoy watching you eat a banana pizza. But first of all, I hope it obviously does not happen.
Well, you know what? Back in the day when I was younger, before I was married, I remember somebody dared me. We were at Dublin Pub in Morristown, and I think Hansi dared me to chug an entire bottle of Heinz ketchup, and I actually did it. Yeah, I actually did it. Believe it or not, it was like
not
this.
Bad.
Yeah,
I've done barbecue sauce one time. That wasn't very good.
Yeah. Matt Junio says on the Facebook Live, pineapples. By the way, I am actually deathly allergic to pineapples. It
really
is kryptonite. Yes. Tailgating, my friends used to throw pineapples at me thinking it was funny, and then they see like, wow, the pineapple juice causes hives. Yeah, deathly allergic. Maybe I shouldn't even say this on this podcast.
Yeah,
if you're a New York Rangers fan, you may spike my food one day.
No, I mean we're getting into pizza instead of the Devils, which is a better thing for me to talk about, but
look at
Hawaiian.
Bill. We talk about food all the time.
Come on. The Hawaiian pizza, I never quite got into it. I did have a slice one time. I didn't like it. And then I had another slice for a different, maker, and I actually thought it was very good. So I haven't really experienced the whole Hawaiian, pizza theme, and, if that's something for me. But yeah, you put pretty much a lot of things on pizza and I'll enjoy it. But bananas that sounds like a little one-off.
I
Now,
would
if
put
you're
Taylor ham. I'll put Taylor ham on pizza.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you what. I'll put Taylor ham on pizza.
Ooh, it's a good idea. And I didn't even I mean, maybe there's someone that does this. Does anyone do a Taylor ham, egg, and cheese pizza?
It will happen on the Let's Go Devils podcast. I love that idea.
I'm in. I am absolutely in. You put nice little egg and Taylor ham on top of a cheese pizza?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. All right. You know what, Billy Dean?
What an idea.
Let me tell you something. We have a new stat invented on this podcast 2 days ago from one of our listeners. Okay. Oh, my goodness. It's called Beefalytics. Beefalytics. Because we like beef. We love beef on this podcast. We love beef. You know what? Like Nick Villano, during the off season, he's like, give me the beef.
Hey, where's the beef?
We're going to give you the Beefalytics. And oh my goodness, likes you already, big Devils fan. He's already given you a 9.3 Beefalytics, Billy D.
Nice. I like it. 9.3. Yeah. No, it's out of 10, right? I want to make sure I'm not like at a 20 or something.
Out of 10, but you know what? If you go above 10, you're above and beyond with beef.
Ooh.
So we like beef here. Stephen Engel says, Big Stephen Engel says it's pork roll. Let me tell you this.
Oh my God!
I'm going. I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to tell you this. It's always been called Taylor ham.
Yep.
In 1906, the federal government created this agency, which is now called the FDA. And the first thing they went after, it wasn't the medicines, the fake medicines that were out there, the quack stuff back in 1906. The first thing they went after is the Taylor ham folks in New Jersey. That smells like corruption. It smells like George Case paying off government officials to make us call it pork roll.
It's embarrassing.
Because he wants to sell his brand. All right? It's always been called Taylor ham. If you want to believe my conspiracy theory, thank you. If you don't, it's still called Taylor ham. Anyway. Go ahead.
I have to deal with New York, obviously, the Rangers, and those New Yorkers don't even know what Taylor ham or pork roll is. Once you get over the river, it's just bacon, egg, and cheese or sausage, and none are nearly as good as the Taylor ham. You have to go to Jersey, and obviously the product is the same, but the name Taylor ham specifies the manufacturer, which pork roll is the actual.
But you know what?
Roll, but
don't you call the thing on the ice called Zamboni? You don't call it a 4-wheel drive ice scraper. It's a Zamboni.
That would be pretty interesting.
I mean, seriously. And then I've had pork roll people tell me, oh, no, I do call it a 4-wheel drive ice scraper. No, you don't. It's a Zamboni. Idiots. The inventor should always have the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. And this is what we're talking, folks, on the State of the Fan address with our guest host, Billy Dean, as Devils Training Camp. Yeah, see, even our first day of the new season 6 of State of the Fan address, we're goofing around. And the Devils were goofing around, too. I mean, there was a lot of pictures, a lot of videos. But one thing I did catch from Lindy Ruff, I read it somewhere. I read it quickly. I could have this wrong. That he said that the Devils right now have kind of a diverse type roster in terms of, you have Palat that has won it. You've got Brendan Smith, who is a veteran leader, and I would like you to hear your words on Brendan Smith a little later. The this offseason, they missed out on a sweepstakes of Johnny Gaudreau, but you know what? They did get John Marino and Palat out of that money they would have spent on Gaudreau. And I think it's money well spent. It spreads out the wealth, makes the team more well-rounded. Ty Smith is gone. So will John Marino be a huge upgrade over Ty Smith? I would say yes in the short term. Long term, I still believe Ty Smith has an upside that Pittsburgh could harness out. But Bill, let's say this. Brendan Smith, I want to hear your opinion about him. Because I think he's the guy that they signed that doesn't get much headlines, but I think he's going to help out the defense in other than this, on the ice, but I think off the ice as well.
Yeah, he's the perfect 6th/7th defenseman. And that's not a knock. That's a very, how many, 6 times 32, that's, there's only, so many NHL defensemen that, you have on rosters. And he's one of the best, I think. He's continually putting forward effort, and he could play, even if you needed to in a spot, if you go down a couple wingers, he could play wing. I always, during the time with the Rangers, we had sometimes, even Lindy Ruff, obviously had him on his defensive squad when he was with the Rangers. But, Brendan Smith was always one of those guys, you could see the effort, you could see that his teammates loved him, and that's a big thing in the locker room. I mean, with the Rangers themselves, you look at a guy like Ryan Reeves, and, he might not provide the best hockey ability, but he's great in the locker room, and his teammates love him, and that does bring something to your team. And it's an intangible that a lot of people don't notice, but those kind of players, they might not be the best hockey players, but they're the best in the locker room, and that's a big thing. But Brendan Smith himself, I was always big on him just for the fact that when, everybody talks about, with the Washington Capitals and Artemi Panarin and him just getting manhandled by, Ryan, by Wilson, and Brendan Smith was the one that stuck up for him. And, Brendan Smith, dwarfs Wilson by a lot, and he held his own, and he was willing to go at him, and that always showed heart, and your teammates loved that. And that's the kind of guy he is. He's a gamer, and he's just always there for his teammates. And in his zone, he's okay. He's not great. He's not the best defensive defenseman, and he could provide some sort of offense in a pinch. I think last year had 4 or 5 goals for you guys, and that's kind of what you could expect a little bit. Brendan Smith is just continually in and around the play, and you're not always screaming. Occasionally he's gonna have a snafu, because that's just what it is, right? He's a 6th defenseman, 7th defenseman, but if you put him and Ryan Graves together, I think that's a pretty good pairing for that third pair. Because you tell me what you think, Sam, but I'm guessing Severson, Marino, Siegenthaler, Hamilton are your top 4. Is that how it's been shaping up a little bit, or has Ryan Graves been getting play?
Ryan Graves and Dougie Hamilton were like a dynamic duo, twin tower type, pairing. It doesn't mean that they would, do that this upcoming season with the amount of defensemen that they have. But, Lindy Ruff will and the staff will look at that. I honestly think right now we talk about Brendan Smith, that incident where he defending your teammate. He's all heart. Is he kind of like the player that Brian Boyle was with the Devils? Just that emotional leader that can pick up an entire team. Not skill wise, but just the locker room guy that is the glue to making a team play like a team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. I agree. I think he's that kind of player, and he's someone that he kind of shapes that locker room without needing an A or a C on his jersey, and he a lot of people look up to him, and they go and see him in the locker room, and they just respect him. He's 33, he's been in the league for 12, 13 years now, and he's continually been a steady, not fantastic, but a steady defenseman, and that's the perfect thing, like I said, for a 6-7 spot where you're looking for some stability and someone that you can rely on, and he's reliable even at 33 years old.
Got some silly questions here on the YouTube Live. Does Billy think Lafreniere is better than Jack Hughes?
No.
Okay. I think that's a litmus test to see if you know what you're talking about.
No. Well, I mean, can we talk about the Devils fans that thought that Ty Smith was better than Adam Fox? Because there was tons of them when we first started talking.
That?
Oh, there were tons. There were tons that were writing in the Facebook page that Ty Smith was going to, win Norris trophies, and he was much better than Adam Fox. I mean, those people, I should have taken receipts because there was a lot of them. And,
yeah. Billy Dean, you should know this. We're from Jersey. We like to be sarcastic. Yeah. No, nobody would say that.
No.
Let me ask
no one would
YouTube Live
ever say that.
And Facebook Live. Do you think Ty Smith is better than Adam Fox? Can't wait to hear your comments and your reaction.
So I mean, getting back right to Hughes and Lafreniere, and I always, back when the draft with Hughes and Kakko happened, I was hoping that the Devils would make a big mistake and take Kakko, just because he played versus men over Jack Hughes, because you could see the talent that Hughes had, and Kakko was doing it against older guys, and there was that whole thing about that makes him a better prospect, and I thought that was bullshit, and I was hoping the Devils made the mistake. They obviously didn't, but Kakko's had a rough go, and if he I still think the talent's there for him to become that 60-point player, power forward, and grabbing 30 goals. I think that's there, but he's it's going to take him some time, and hopefully that happens during his career.
What do you think about Zegras?
Well, so this is where the Lafreniere, Hughes, Zegras, even Zegras in this space, but Lafreniere last year during the playoff run, he looked like a completely different player, and that's what I'm expecting in training camp to come in. And I'm not saying he's going to get 60, 70, 80 points, but if I can see him get 25 to 30 goals, because he was also the second, he was second on the Rangers squad in even strength goals, and that's pretty good for a second-year player. He had 19, I believe, even strength goals. He's growing, and if I can see him get 30 and that 40 to 50, even 50-point margin, he has a talent, and it's still there, and he showed it in juniors, and the Rangers have kind of taken, put training wheels on him. They stick him in third and fourth line roles, which isn't conducive really to building as a player. I don't think, when you're trying to get a big number one prospect to really show points and become the better player, he's got to play top 6 minutes. He's not even featured on the power play. So, that's where I think he can grow. But I mean, Jack Hughes is special. The guy is, as an outsider, you wish he was on your team, and you're going to see him get, that 60, 70, 80 point mark and be one of the top 10 centers in the league for a long time. And,
what's amazing about Jack Hughes is the amount of takeaways he had last season, averaging one a game with his pickpocket moves, and no penalty minutes. Like, I don't think he had any.
Wow.
If he did, it was only 2 minutes. And that tells you the attention to details, the hard work that, he put in. And that's something to look at, because you know what? Jack Hughes could be a Lady Bing winner for 10 years straight at that rate. He doesn't mix it up. He's so focused on his game that he lets his teammates do all the shenanigans. A lot of the beef work, that we talk about, the beefalytics. It's, again, I think Jack Hughes undoubtedly, the Devils selected him first overall. Nico Hischier takes on a different role, different leadership role as the captain. Also a top 6 forward, first line center, second line center. It doesn't matter with those two. Mm-hmm. And, the Devils have them locked up pretty, for at least another 5-6 years together. And, and they're what's Nico Hischier? 23 years old? 23?
Yeah.
28. And Jack Hughes, just turned 21? It's such a young team, but now they have veterans right now. And that's what Lindy Ruff was talking about the offseason, just bringing different players from different situations. I mean, John Marino, I think Lil Steve on Hockey on Tap said he loved John Marino.
Yeah.
He said John Marino is a good D guy. And
Adam Fox's college teammate, defensive partner.
Where did they play?
They played at Harvard.
Another Harvard guy, Riley Walsh, who was in the Prospect Challenge. I'll tell you what, from what I saw last season, he may be the best all-around defenseman. Because, he can skate. He's always involved with the play. Yeah. Wearing the number 8. And just, he impressed me, Riley Walsh. And again, if you look at the pipeline of Luke Hughes and Simon Nemitz, and then Seamus Casey, Ethan Edwards, Kevin Ball. I mean, when you're talking about guys that are on their contract years, Ryan Graves and Damon Severson, but you look at this pipeline, I don't think the South, it's like if they walk, they walk, because you just bring up some of these young kids. And we haven't even talked about Shakir Mohammadulin, which he's not going to be here for a while. He's back overseas, fulfilling his obligations, I guess. I don't know. His entry-level contract is on the clock right now. Don't understand that, but okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, you guys got, like you just mentioned all the defensive prospects, and, that's the luxury that kind of the Rangers have now, even though they just made a trade to get rid of Niels Lundqvist, and they get a first-round pick from Dallas, which I was kind of surprised at that they were able to get that. For a prospect that kind of didn't want to stay around. It's nothing because of the talent. He's all-world talent, but they just couldn't figure a way to get to him. But, they had this pipeline, him and Zach Jones and a couple other guys, where they could afford to let go to some veterans. Nemeth was not good last year, but they could afford to let these guys go and bring in, some prospects from the AHL and kind of groom them into, NHL defensemen. But you guys have, you have vets in training camp like Thomas Hickey.
They got a good balance of veterans and the young kids in that pipeline. And that's what Lindy Ruff was saying pretty much today. And one guy I wanted to ask you, changing gears, is you're going to notice one thing, Billy Dean. This podcast here on the Let's Get Devils, it's all over the place. It's always been. That's how it started. 3 Devils fans at a bar. You're all over the place. Alexander Holtz.
Yep.
What are your feelings on him?
He's the X factor, right, for this season. He could, they couldn't land a splashy, and obviously Devils fans pretty sour about not getting Gaudreau, I believe, but they couldn't add this winger. So, they're going to look to improve the offense by committee, between Sharon Govich and Bratt and Dawson Mercer. If Holtz can make that leap to the NHL and perform, it goes a long way towards getting the Devils where they need to be. You have a player that has oodles of talent, first round pick 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago or 3 years ago now? It was 2 years ago, I believe.
2020, 7th overall.
And
same
obviously
with, Dawson Mercer.
Yeah,
by the way.
Yeah, I mean, but I was going to say, look at that top 6, and I like what the Devils are doing. You have Andre Palat to give that first line, especially I would guess that Hughes is going to play with Bratt and with Palat, and that's a perfect spot, for Hughes to kind of get that, veteran presence on there to kind of help him grow. That second line, you're going youth with Hischier and Shankovich and Dawson Mercer. And then this is where you have the benefit of, if Holtz comes in, he can go and play with a Tomas Tatar and an Andreas Janssen or an Eric Halla, and he can grow into that, being the player that they are hoping he can be. And you don't have to worry about him, taking hard minutes because you have the wing depth, and you can kind of just let him simmer. And if he booms, it's only better for the Devils, right? And the Rangers have this kind of, 2 years ago, had the same kind of thing where you had Pavel Buchnevich, but then they still have a couple of guys waiting in the wings that needed some time, so they were able to trade him. Not a great trade in hindsight. Rangers not getting what I thought was fair value for a top 6 winger, but that's what it allows you. It allows you to make deals, to get yourself better in certain other positions. Maybe it's going to be a defenseman, or heck, even a goaltender if Vitek Vanacek doesn't turn out to be the guy, or Blackwood, same thing. And then your fourth line can be your grinding types, your Michael McLeods, your Bashians, your Miles Woods. Even I think they sign. I saw Zach Senshin, I think was another name they'd gotten, former Bruin.
Yep.
But they have the ability to go out. Nolan Foote, if he ever, kind of grows up and gets better. But you guys have the talent, and you have the pipeline to kind of feed in and make those necessary moves to get, to make a trade to get an Andrew Kopp eventually for a playoff run, right? You can do that stuff because you have guys sitting in the wings. And I think that, like I said, Holtz is the primetime opportunity to be kind of that X factor on a young team and kind of push them over the top in terms of, forwards and then how they line up and stack up.
Yeah, I mean, Alexander Holtz, if he's wide open in the slot area, he's very deadly with his shot. Yeah. And same with Jack Hughes as well. Left circle, it's almost last season, anytime Hughes had a clear opening on the left side, the puck was in the net every single time. And, I mean, Alexander Holtz, I thought he did pretty well in Utica. Took it to heart with some of the things that they told him on the exit meetings, that he needed to bulk up, trained with Jesper Bratt. Prospect challenge, did pretty well against Montreal. But now we need to see some consistency from Alexander Holtz. And you're right, Bill. If Alexander Holtz cracks the lineup, it's going to help the Devils along in the rebuild and finally try to be relevant by the end of the season.
Yeah. So, and this will probably be more from my knowledge that, from you, but Francis Ayuso asked what Devils players could possibly make it out of camp as surprises like Mercer did last year. Do you have someone you're watching that you're interested in to see if they could possibly make a spot and take out one of the veterans or one of the fourth liners?
Well, Megan Dugan, the player development guru that the Devils hired, Megan said her 2 picks was Riley Walsh and Fabian Zetterlund. Had a good chance. Zetterlund is, again, the third line last season for the Devils, very inconsistent. When they were on, Devils were winning. When they were playing poorly or they were slumping, Devils were losing. And the third line is a very important line. It's you talked about the third line for many years. Bobby Holik used to man the third line. John Madden, Jay Pandolfo, Sergei Brelin, unselfish players. The check-in line, essentially. And it was very inconsistent, which led to a lot of defensive lapses. I mean, it was awful. It was awful. But right now, the Devils traded Pavel Zacha for Eric Halla, which people forget that he scored 29 goals for the Vegas Golden Knights in their first year existence. I'm not expecting that from Halla, but he's a versatile centerman, and he has decent speed. You put a Fabian Zetterlund. Possibly does Alexander Holt, if he makes the lineup, do you put him on the third line? And I think right now with two guys on contract years, Andreas Johnson and Tomas Tatar, I would expect a better performance out of them.
Mm-hmm.
But see, everything is wide open. This is what excites me. It's because right now the Devils have options. Lindy Ruff has options. He didn't have any goalie options last 2 seasons, really, when goalies were getting hurt, COVID, whatever. He had to go to the emergency backup. Then we had a real e-bug last season. But Lindy Ruff has more options, more tools in the toolbox to use, and competition's good. Little mix of veterans, little mix of young kids in that pipeline. Again, not trying to overhype it like the Devils are going to win the Stanley Cup this season, but we see that progression. Yeah. Remember last season, Bill? Lindy Ruff, everybody wanted him fired except for only one person, and that was me.
Yeah.
I did not, because I believe in Lindy, and he's been there, done that. But I know you don't like him as defensive coach for the Rangers.
Yeah, I just think he kind of passed him by. But I mean, if he's, I don't know how he does with the young players, and for the Rangers, he didn't really do what I wanted him to do. So I did have one more question, and it's more for the Devils fans and the reactions for this player. But Jesper Bratt, I mean, you're talking about a guy that, signs the 1-year deal, and everyone kind of wanted him to do a longer-term extension. What's the Devils fans' take, or, is he in simmering water with Devils fans? Are they upset with him? They think he's going to be gone at the end of this year?
Well, let's put it this way. There's no ill will here. He signed for a decent amount of money. It's basically
5.5.
I believe the Devils still have control for another year after this year. I think it'd be a restricted free agent, but it's kind of like put up or shut up type year in terms of, can you do it again, Jesper? Can you do it again? Are you the player that we envisioned when we picked you in the 6th round as a sleeper pick? And one thing I'm noticing, and great teams, if you want to talk about 20 years ago, there were 2 teams that were great, maybe 3. The Colorado Avalanche, the New Jersey Devils, and the Detroit Red Wings.
Yep.
Out of the 3, I would say that the Red Wings was the better of the 3.
Most talented.
Yep. Most talented. Do you know why? It's because they knew how to draft in the later rounds.
Oh, yeah.
And who did they get? Pavel Datsyuk, Henrik Zetterberg.
Yep. Okay.
And they knew how to draft. And Ken Holland was able to extract, 97, 98, 2002, and I believe 2007 or 2008 Stanley Cups, 2008 Stanley Cups. And it's because of those late rounds. You're looking at the Devils right now. Some of these late round picks like Bratt, Sharon Govich is now proven himself to be worthy of that late round Tom Brady type pick. But what about Josh Philman? 2022, I believe 6th round pick, 160.
This is a name I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, in the Prospect Challenge, 2 goals in that tournament.
Yeah,
he could be a steal, and it tells me that the Devils, their scouting, it took a while under Ray Shero. That was, I call rebuild 1.0.
Yeah,
rebuild 2.0 under Tom Fitzgerald. We're starting to see the fruits of what they've done, and I bought in. Believe it or not, I bought in. I've been very critical of the ownership group. I've been very critical about a lot of things. But I'm starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know if fans agree with me. But, Bill, all I have to say is your team's screwed. Your team's screwed. the Devils can get it together.
Yeah, I'm not worried about you guys yet. Maybe next year, the year after. But by that time, Pittsburgh, I think, starts to take a big step back. I know Crosby's Crosby, but Malkin just another year of getting of having injuries, and Letang, same thing, not getting any older or not getting any younger. Washington's going to start to take that step back. You already have them without Backstrom this year. Ovi's eventually going to slow down. This Metro's going to become, and then the Islanders have their own. I mean, Islanders just amazing offseason.
The Flyers are a mess, by the way.
Flyers are a disaster. Columbus is going to be okay. They're going to have a stud in Gaudreau, and they have line in a couple other guys that are respectable. Werenski's a decent defenseman. They have two solid goaltenders. Yeah. But between the Rangers, Carolina, Devils, that's three teams that in the next 5 years they're going to be beating on each other for quite a while. And it's going to be exciting. And when the Rangers and Devils used to go at it all the time, that was the most fun. The fact that they've kind of been both bad very recently is kind of taken the luster off that, the early
mainly the Devils
out of that.
Mainly
the Rangers were bad too for a while. The note to the fans and stuff, and that was miserable. But it's all fun stuff. And I was actually looking quickly at the Red Wings and their depth, but Tomas Holmstrom and Darren Helm and Vladimir Konstantinov, and we talk about Zetterberg and Datsuk, but the number one is Fedorov, right? He was taken 74th overall for a Hall of Famer and one of the better two-way forwards of all time.
Was Lidstrom a second rounder?
Lidstrom was a top. I think he was a. I think you would think he was a first-round pick. Lidstrom draft. I'd have to take a look, but I think he was actually pretty high up. But 53rd overall. Yeah, I was wrong. Yeah, Nicholas Lidstrom, 53rd. I mean, those are great. Him and Fedorov are in the same draft. That's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous. That's scouting, folks. That is scouting, and great teams have great scouts, and those later rounds, those hidden gems that people talk about, it's for real. What about Tyler Brennan, the goalie that the Devils picked in 2022, played the third game of the Prospect Challenge? I saw some glimpses of, hey, this kid's pretty talented. Yeah. Raw talent. Still needs to develop. Maybe 2 or 3 years down the line, Tyler Brennan could be a name that Devils fans are talking about. Okay. That's cracking the lineup. So you never know.
So your goaltender to start the year is going to be Vitek Vanacek, and I'm sure he's going to split a little bit of time with Mackenzie Blackwood. But I'm
saying Mackenzie Blackwood.
Oh, okay. Are you that confident in that duo long term?
Long term,
that sounds like.
Well, I to be honest with you, it's going to be one or the other after this season, maybe sooner, okay. And it's probably going to be Vanacek. But I have a feeling Mackenzie Blackwood, Mac Black, is going to do something this season that we're like, where was this the last 2 years, buddy? He's playing for his career right now, and he's got to perform.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, a really one of the a terrible year last year, and Vitek Vanacek has been one of those players that you watched from afar, and you're like, wow, this guy's doing pretty well. So I would have thought it would have been him to start off the season, but I guess if Blackwood could come back, and
I'm just making my gut assessment. I'm not. It's just a gut assessment. My brain says it's going to be Vanacek, but I have a feeling that Mac Black is going to do something. He's going to do something.
I wanted to ask you, who do you think, or do you know who the Devils took in the 89 draft? At 5th overall?
89 draft?
Yep. So same draft as Lidstrom and Fedorov.
89.
He is currently a GM in the National Hockey League.
5th overall, Verbeek? Pat Verbeek?
No. Billy Guerin.
Yeah, of course
And,
it's Billy Guerin. Yeah, I know.
and do you know who was taken at 10th overall to the Hartford Whalers in that same 89 draft? Eventual New Jersey Devil.
Bobby Holik.
One Bobby Holik. Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 1 overall pick that year was Matt Sundin. That's a damn good draft. Only the goalie was in here. Sorry, I got kind of sidetracked, but we talked about meats and stuff, so I was like, I could go down the little rabbit hole of the draft. Pavel Bure was taken in the 6th round that year. That was a really good.
Well,
really
a lot
good
of
draft.
the Russian players were like high risk draft picks, and it was a different world back then. You simply just didn't know, but you take a chance at it. And it was actually Lou Lamoriello that brought Fetisov and Kasatonov on the Devils, the two Russian, defensemen. But yeah, so just reading some of the comments here.
Yeah, I was reading some too.
But don't ask me about the PA announcer because on the 27th, I'm sure we're going to find out who it is.
Yeah, I saw that on there before.
All I tell people is just eat Taylor ham and figure it out.
I Steve Tardis asking about Dawes. Well, you're saying Dawes should be there next year. Blackwood and Bernier are here. He doesn't think they're going to be here next year. I guess if Bernier comes back, is he just going to kind of sit in the AHL for a little while? I mean, unless one of the other two kind of falters.
You know what? Bernier, let's put it this way. The biggest contribution he'd make for the New Jersey Devils is to collect your money and just ride the pine.
Just sit.
And don't even come back. It's not to be mean, but number one, his health comes first. Those hip injuries take a while to come back. There's no reason to rush. I would run out the clock and just collect the $4.2 million. Help your team out by not counting against the cap. And, think for the year after, and try to get healthy. Because, again, we saw what happened with Corey Schneider. He came back. He wasn't the same person. The same player, so to speak. So.
All right, my last question, just going off of your defensive prospects. So you have, Hughes, and you got Nemec, and you have, we talked about Ball and all them. Who's the guy that everybody's really clamoring over? Is it Nemec or is it Luke Hughes?
Well, Hughes is going back to Michigan.
Yep.
They are taking their time with Hughes. Nemec, you know what? It's all about Luke Hughes at this point. Okay. Brother of Jack, Nemec is a great player. Don't get me wrong. I think they're neck and neck in terms of their projection, in my opinion. But I think Luke Hughes, again, you talk about the pedigree, you talk about, what he's done so far, at least at a collegiate level, World Juniors level, all that. That pairing could be the pairing of the decade.
Nemec Hughes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's scary.
It is scary. And they lock him up for career contracts with the Devils. I mean, that's something else. I mean, look at what Nathan McKinnon is making right now. 100,000 more over Connor McDavid. Okay.
Yeah.
You look at that Jack Hughes contract, 8 years, which starts this year, 8 years, $8 million. Jack Hughes did not sign that contract just to make quick bucks. He signed that contract because it left meat on the bone, because we like to talk about beef. He left meat on the bone so the GM can sign and re-sign players to surround himself with. If that isn't just, it's a great contract, but I'll tell you what, it's going to, 5 years from now, he could be a wonderful, because he would still have 3 years left, and it'd be the deal of the century.
No, I agree.
For Jack.
When when Adam Fox signed his deal, I think he's just starting now this year. He's got a 7-year, $9.5 million cap hit. And at first I was like, oh man, $9.5 million. But cap's going to go up. And, these players, Fox was third in the league in points by defenseman. He had 74 last year. These players are just going to get better and better. And you don't mind paying that. I mean, Igor Shesterkin's making 5.5 for another 3 years. The one contract as a Ranger fan that I'm not overly fond of is Jacob Trouba's. He's got 8 for another 5 years or 4 years, but
made him captain, didn't they?
Yeah, made him captain. Yeah,
made him captain.
I thought it would have been, myself, Chris Kreider, but I guess the writing was on the wall since last year during training camp. All the players wanted Trouba as the captain, and I guess the coaching staff just didn't want to do that. They'd rather have assistants to kind of see how it shakes out. But he's apparently earned it. Everybody in that locker room loves him, and they think he is their captain. So I have no problem with that. But you talk about Nemec and Luke Hughes, which led to my Adam Fox thing. But Keandre Miller and Adam Fox are eventually going to be that same type of pairing where you're going to look at it and you'll be like, God damn, we have these guys for 10 years, and it is awesome because both of those two are exciting, just like your two prospects are exciting.
But just remember, Seamus Casey, again, second-round pick of this past draft, Jersey kid, he is very talented. Ethan Edwards as well, like Michigan, the University of Michigan. As a Penn Stater, I'll say this, University of Michigan, I have a lot of vested interest in your hockey program right now because you're holding 3 key Devils defensemen, and you add in Simon Nemec, Muhammad Doolin, Riley Walsh. I mean, that is just crazy talented defensemen. And you know what? If they walk or they get signed in restricted free agency or whatever, or they get traded, the Devils have so much value coming back to them where that pipeline will be full for a while. And that gets me excited because you know what? Lou did a great job. 3 Stanley Cups, 20 years of hope of winning the Stanley Cup. You know what? The pipeline dried up. It dried up. And you know what? These things happen. And he tried to reload instead of rebuild. But at the end, it took a long time for Ray Shero and Tom Fitzgerald over time to get it going. And Devils Rangers, and we'll end on this note, Bill. Devils Rangers by 2025 is going to be like what it was in 2012. It's going to be a battle. 1994, 95, the early 90s was amazing. The fights, the hatred. Dr. McMullen, former Devils owner, the one owner that brought the team to New Jersey, absolutely hated the Rangers. So did Lou Lamoriello, Martin Brodeur. It's in Martin Brodeur's book. He hates the Rangers, and so does Lou. It's actually, I think it's on page, 167. I don't know. But let's talk about Devils Rangers this year. I was talking to a couple of friends. We want to do a garden invasion. How hard is it to get tickets?
They're expensive. It's not hard, but they're expensive. Yeah. I'll see what I can do. I can get some tickets. Maybe see if I can get some contacts to help me out. But
we should do a podcast outside of Madison Square Garden.
I'm game for that.
I'll be down for that, right?
Yeah. Listen, I mean, the games this year are gonna be fun. You still have the young talent. Rangers, same thing. I won't say they're a cup contender, but they're a serious playoff contender. I think they're a 1 or 2. That was a good playoff run they had last year, and to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, and I expected Tampa to Rima's new one, but to get that far is good experience for young kids. You can see Lafreniere and Kakko and Philip Hedl all took steps forward. You bring in a guy like Vincent Trocheck to take those big second line minutes. I think he's an upgrade over Ryan Strome, and that first line has all the talent with, Mika and Kreider, and you're going to get Sammy Blais back. That defense, you look at the back end, and Fox, Lindgren are a top pair. Miller and Trouba played really well together last year. I would like to see Lindgren with Trouba this year and Miller up on that top pair, but, they might kind of leave it for another year. Braden Schneider came in and he played really well.
He was a steal.
Yeah.
After the Devils picked Mercer, they got Braden Schneider, and I'll tell you
what. You guys
were
really upset about that. Yeah.
Because that 20th pick, so Muhammad Dolan, all that jazz. Couple things. People are asking about Chase Stillman. Look, he's a couple years away. It's hard to project. I think he's going to be a very effective third-line center one day that can bring that nastiness, tenaciousness, speed, and just a forward that's just going to chew your butt off every single time because he brings the A game. Speaking of Steven Engel, Big Steve Engel says, how about the O train? Now, I was saving this for last before we go, but you better watch out, Billy Dean, because at Madison Square Garden, there's one fearless young defenseman on the New Jersey Devils, known as the O Train on this podcast, Nikita Okhotyuk. See, everyone tells me how to pronounce his name. I get people writing it down for me, but Okhotyuk, whatever. Okay, we call him the O Train. Hit the Beefalytics on a scale of 10, it's 15. Okay, the kid is so fearless that he will hit you legally. If you mess with one of the star players like Nemitz, like he did at Prospect Challenge, or even Jack Hughes, he'll just simply destroy you.
Okay.
And I can't wait to see that at Madison Square Garden.
So he's a Ryan Lindgren. That's what it sounds like. He's a Ryan Lindgren.
Well, you know what? Ranger fans were such pansies about PK Subban. This guy is the real deal. He will piss you off, and you want to kill him. I think he's the Devils' maybe possible Brooks Orpik, because the Devils, we compare them to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Brooks Orpik, where he is just going to be that just really annoying defenseman that's going to piss you off.
I mean, listen, the Rangers got back Jimmy Vesey to take care of the Devils, so don't worry about that. You know all about Jimmy Vesey. So.
Yeah, I know, but I'm looking at Beefalytics. He's a 15 out of 10. Not 10 out of 10, 15 out of 10.
You can't get any beefier than Chris Kreider, so I'll raise you one. And then we also got Ryan Reeves, who just, he'll smack around anybody the Devils, I'm not really worried.
Nah. Well, Bill, thank you so much for filling in for Nick Villano, pucksandpitchforks.com. Yep. You haven't gone there already. Lots of stuff about Subban. Vinny Parisi has been a writing machine over there. Pucksandpitchforks.com. I got to start writing. Been slacking. Doing a lot of podcasts. You and I'll talk off air about some other stuff, but also congratulations to your brother. He's getting married on Friday.
Prime time co-host. It's going to be good.
Yes.
And I wouldn't be remiss without saying Devils suck on your podcast, right? I mean, it just makes sense. Get some, ratings and people that really hate Billy Dean, right?
Do you know what that's called? That's called trolling.
Yeah.
You're just trolling our fans. You're just trolling our fans.
Why are you trolling our talking? Fans? You want to get people talking, right? I mean, if I hear one more Ty Smith is better than Adam Fox, I'm going to lose it.
I got to ask you a question, though. When are they going to take the wrecking ball on Madison Square Garden? Isn't it supposed to be a train station in a couple of years?
They're already doing it. They're already doing MSG right now. Or not MSG. We're doing the guard.
Penn Station.
Penn Station, thank you. I wouldn't mind them moving. I mean, it's nice. It's a good arena, but they could definitely do something better. And that's not the original Garden. It's been moved 3 times.
Well, you know what? The Devils own Woolman Rink now. where they operated. So maybe you guys will play there.
We'll go to Westchester or something.
Yeah. I want to thank all those tuning in, dropping the podcast at midnight. Be back for the Woo Report tomorrow. Till next time, let's go Devils.